a professional hitwoman with a reputation for never missing. The woods were a labyrinth of shifting shadows and ancient spruce. The air grew bone-chillingly cold as the sun dipped below the tree line. In the heat of the pursuit, the unthinkable happened. A shot rang out, a sharp crack that tore through the silence of the valley. "Charlie!" Sarah's scream was raw, a sound of pure agony. Charlie went down, the impact of the bullet spinning him into the damp moss. Rex was a blur of fur and fury, standing over his fallen partner, his growl a low, tectonic vibration that seemed to shake the earth. Sarah was at his side in seconds. Her hands, usually so steady and clinical in the lab, were trembling as she tore open his shirt to press a cloth to the wound. "Stay with me, Charlie. Look at me. Only at me. Don't you dare close those eyes. I'm okay," Charlie gasped, the world beginning to gray at the edges. "Get Wyatt. Get him to safety." "I'm not leaving you," she barked, her eyes flashing with a rare, fierce emotion. It was the first time she had ever truly lost her composure, and in that moment the depth of her love was undeniable. Through a clever ruse involving a false trail and Rex's incredible speed, they managed to distract the hitwoman long enough for backup to arrive. When the helicopters finally roared overhead, Charlie was leaning against a weather-beaten tree, Sarah's arm around his waist, her head buried in his neck. Epilogue: The horizon and the Narrows. 2 weeks later, the bruises had faded to a dull yellow, and the Krainer family was finally facing a mountain of indictments. Brian Jansen was back to his sketchbook, drawing a picture of a German shepherd with a golden badge, a gift for the partners who had saved his world. Charlie and Sarah stood on the balcony of the precinct, looking out over the Narrows. The morning fog was lifting, revealing the vast, sapphire expanse of the Atlantic. "I think I'm ready for that boat trip now," Sarah said, her voice light and hopeful. Charlie looked at her, then at Rex, who was resting his head on his paws between them. He reached out and took Sarah's hand, lacing his fingers with hers, as if they were two pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. There were no phone calls to interrupt them, no bodies to examine, no monsters to hunt. "Where should we go?" he asked, his voice a low rumble of affection. Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Wherever the wind takes us, Charlie. As long as we're together, I'm already home." The Atlantic breeze was cold, but for the first time in his life, Charlie Hudson felt completely, perfectly warm. The Cold Coast Chronicles, Part E, Shadows in the Mist, and the Heart's Harbor. Chapter 5, The Fragile Calm. The recovery was slower than Charlie Hudson liked to admit. A gunshot wound, even a graze, as he'd called it to save face in front of the chief, was a demanding tenant. It throbbed in rhythm with the crashing waves outside his trailer, a constant reminder of the thin line between a successful arrest and a closed casket. Sarah Truong had become a frequent visitor. She claimed it was medical follow-up, but the way she lingered over the tea she brewed, and the way Rex would rest his heavy head on her knee, suggested something deeper. "You're brooding again, Charlie," Sarah said one evening, the amber light of the setting sun catching the steam from her mug. "I'm not brooding. I'm calculating," Charlie grumbled, though his eyes softened when they met hers. "The trainers are in custody, but Jason Trainer has friends, the kind of friends who don't care about borders or badges. You did your job. Jesse and the rest of the team are handling the paperwork," she replied, leaning forward. "For once, let someone else carry the weight." "Including Rex." Rex let out a soft huff, as if in agreement. The German shepherd had barely left Charlie's side since the woods. He was the silent guardian of the trailer, his ears constantly twitching toward the sound of approaching gravel. "I keep thinking about the kid," Charlie said, his voice dropping an octave. "Wyatt. He saw a man die like it was nothing. That changes a person. You don't just go back to being a hiker after that." Sarah sighed, a small, sad sound. "Trauma is a map, Charlie. It redraws your world." Brian, the boy Rex had saved weeks ago, had begun visiting the station. He didn't speak more than he used to, but his drawings had changed. They weren't just snapshots of crime scenes anymore. They were sketches of Rex, of Charlie, of the brightly colored boats in the harbor. He was finding his way back. I want to show you something, Charlie said, reaching for a folder with his good arm. Inside was a report Jesse had pulled. The shipment the trainers were jacking. It wasn't just drugs. It was specialized tech. Encryption hardware. Sarah's brow furrowed. Why would a street-level mobster want high-end encryption? That's the question that's keeping me awake. That, and the fact that Serena Riquet, the hit woman, had a direct line to a server in Cyprus. The same one used in the Megan Schaefer abduction. The realization hit them both. The cases weren't isolated incidents. They were threads in a larger tapestry of corruption that stretched from the law firms of Street Johns to the international waters of the North Atlantic. Chapter 6. The Devereaux Legacy. The air in the Devereaux distillery was thick with the scent of fermented grain and the cold smell of copper. It was a place of history, but as Charlie and Rex walked through the rows of aging barrels, it felt more like a mausoleum. Willem Devereaux had been a man of iron will and brittle emotions. His death had left a vacuum that his children were frantically trying to fill with their own insecurities. He was going to disinherit me. Alan Devereaux admitted during a late-night interrogation that Charlie had insisted on attending, despite his injury. Alan's face was haggard. His suit jacket, the one Rex had found hidden, now a piece of evidence. He called me a little boy. After 30 years of running his books. So you hit him, Charlie stated. It wasn't a question. I snapped. I didn't mean to kill him. I left him there. He was breathing. I swear he was breathing. But the real horror lay in what happened next. Charlie replayed the footage in his mind. Melanie Devereaux, the daughter who felt invisible, finding her father on the floor. She hadn't called for help. She had seen the opportunity to end the cycle of abuse and secure her future. She dragged him to the vat, Sarah had noted during the autopsy, her voice clinical, but her eyes reflecting a deep sadness. The fluid in his lungs wasn't just gin, it was the physical manifestation of our family's hatred. The case had left a bitter taste in Charlie's mouth. It was a reminder that the most dangerous monsters weren't always hiding in the woods. Sometimes they shared your dinner table. As they left the precinct that night, Sarah stopped Charlie in the parking lot. You're thinking about your own father, she said, her intuition cutting through his defenses. Charlie looked away, toward the signal hill. He was a good man, but he was hard. In this job, you see so much of the worst in people. You start looking for it in everyone, even the people you love. Sarah stepped closer, the cold wind whipping her hair across her face. Not everyone is a Devereaux, Charlie. Some people are just human, flawed, but trying. She reached out, her fingers brushing the lapel of his coat. It was a small gesture, but in the silence of the night, it felt like an anchor. Chapter 7. The Voices in the Wind. The shakedown case at the docks had been the catalyst for everything. As Charlie sat in his trailer, the legal files spread out before him, he realized that Tyler Craner was just a pawn. Tyler had killed Malcolm Carter because Carter knew about the side deal. But who was Tyler working for? His father, Jason, seemed the obvious choice. But the encryption hardware pointed towards someone more sophisticated. Rex suddenly stood up, his hackles raised. A low growl started in his throat. Charlie reached for his holster, his heart rate spiking. He moved toward the door, his injury forgotten in a surge of adrenaline. Before he could step outside, his phone buzzed. It was Sarah. Charlie, don't go out there. Her voice was sharp, urgent. Jesse just broke the encryption on Serena Ricketts' phone. The person she was talking to, the person who hired her to kill the witness. It wasn't Jason Trainer. Then who? Charlie asked, his eyes locked on the car. It was Todd, from Wilkins Law. He wasn't just laundering money through the escrow accounts. He was the hub for an international data theft ring. The abduction of Megan was a cover to eliminate her. Because she'd found the digital trail, the car door opened. A man stepped out. It wasn't Todd. It was a face Charlie hadn't seen in years. A man who had been a mentor to him back in his early days on the force, Detective Miller, now retired and working private security. Hudson, Miller called out, his hands visible. We need to talk.